Hey guys, this is Tony Rasmussen back for episode 21, or episode 2 of season 2. A Boy and His Devil first aired January 24th, 2014. Well, I was on Facebook, on YouTube. If I do believe it was in October, but then the video got deleted and then it had to be re-uploaded again. So this episode has an interesting story behind it. I often don't call this a pat on the back, but I'll say this is probably one of the rare times I patted myself on the back. This, by the way, is, I will say, forever timeless. I'm actually joking. That shot we used again in episode 23. No, not episode 23, 22, sorry. No, this is, when we did this episode, the polar vortex happened, and yeah, that was a jump cut, but, what was I going to say? Yeah, this stuff we got at a convenience store that was actually right across the street from my house. And it was actually, by that point, it was the first time we'd ever spent money on rants and reviews. That's a big surprise. And that wasn't the last, though. But that's a good joke, the saltine cracker. So, yeah, so this was kind of, we made this joke up about the polar vortex, and that was at a point when we were just saying, yeah, this may actually get worse. Okay, Return from Limbo. I'll talk about that in a minute, but so this episode had, like I said, it had an interesting story behind it. The idea behind this episode was originally we were going to do an episode called The Top 5 Best and Worst Comedians. And, by the way, my number 1 would have been George Carlin, and number 2 of best would have also been Bobcat Goldthwait. I'm sorry, I'm losing my mind here. So, but at first it didn't work out. So what we ended up doing was we decided then, we'll just do an episode commemorating the success the comic strip had. And yes, by this point I was working on a comic strip. It was Damon and His Devil, and we were actually ending by the point the series was going on. The interesting thing about Damien and His Devil was I never envisioned it to be a comic strip. I actually envisioned it to be an animated series. But because of a few miscalculations on my part, mostly because of certain elements that ended up happening, we ended up pitching it as a comic strip, I would say almost a year later, the year after we gotten a deal for Endsville. But there's another story I want to tell, which is the story of how that ended. Because I think everyone who I know constantly believes that we ended due to the lack of interest they had. And I always stated it was kind of more of a creative differences type of ordeal. What ended up happening was there was a conflict. During the 3rd year, I had taken the summer off. So the last comic I worked on was this, which is the Washington arc. That comic that you just saw was the main reason why we ended up having the creative conflict issue. Because in my end, it was just a good joke. On their end, however, they thought it was an offensive joke. So, and there was then issue over whether or not they wanted to continue their renewal of the contract, which would have brought us into a 4th and 5th year. What ended up happening because of that, however, was a few other things. There was 3 more story arcs planned. We lost all 3 of those story arcs. We lost Damien going to Washington. We lost Damien meeting a new girl. We lost, trying to think of all the other stories we lost. Oh, The Boys Going to Space, which actually, it was made, it just never ran. We lost Devil and Vanessa dating. We lost Damien meeting a new girl named Jill, and the 2 of them starting to go out. But what ended up resulting out of that was actually one of my personal favorite characters. And I have the decency to say this because she was my favorite character, I think, of all time that I made. Comey was a really funny character that I love to design. And I can state that I had the most fun designing that character. But because of all the issues we had, Comey was like the last new character introduced. And it's kind of sad to think that that was how it all ended. But who knows? At one point I've stated that I may or may not do Revival, and also at the time, Coed and Timebox King were also being made, so yeah, so that's really what happened, though, was creative differences, and it resulted in the comic strip ending. So, I will see you for episode 22. Peace!